You know, all this used to get last time around. The things change. Hopefully just starts a conversation. The one I really want to basically until the I was saying on right here. So here's my. So. We must be intended to circuit for gas tax sources, so that this is, it can be a little different, this is just same there. Realty is a percentage of the state. 1.5%. Over here on the funding, get 16% of our. So this is, that's the disparity, disparity, that's right. That's right.
No, I just like that's a good. That happens to. 35 years.
Yes, sir. We are.
Guys.
Yes, sir. You're live. Welcome, Jim Sullivan, Oldham County Engineer and current TPCC Chair. I'd like to welcome you to the February 11th, 2026 Transportation Technical Coordinating Committee with KIPTA meeting. And I'd like to welcome you here on a nearly snow-free day. Welcome. Andy, would you conduct the roll call?
Yes, I sure will. Do we have anybody from Bullitt County? Charlestown, City of Charlestown? City of Jeffersontown? Here. City of Jeffersonville? Mount Washington?
Here.
Hi, Don. City of New Albany? City of Shepherdsville? City of St. Matthews?
Shepherdsville's here.
Hi, Scott. St. Matthews? Clark County? Floyd County?
Nick Creavy's here.
Hey, Nick. Do we have anybody from IDEM on the line? We'll hear more on their quality stats later. NDOT Seymour.
Robin Bolte, I'm here.
Well, hi, Robin.
Haley's here as well.
NDOT Technical Planning and Programming. Anybody else from NDOT Central Office? Okay. Kentucky DAQ.
Just join them. She's hold on.
Claire just joined?
Yep.
Hi, Claire. We'll see you.
Hi, we're also going to have Emma Morio on the call.
All right. Thank you all for joining us. How about this one? KYTC District 5. Oh, just in time. KYTC Division of Planning. Here, Isidro Delgado. Keep this here. Thank you, Isidro. KYTC OTD. I don't believe so. Louisville Metro Air Pollution Control District.
And then.
Planning. Metro Economic Development. Metro Planning and Design. Metro Public Works.
Mark Knoll is here.
Hello, Mark. Louisville Regional Airport Authority. Here, Andero. Louisville River Port Authority.
I'm here today, guys.
Hello, Miguel. Good to see you.
Hello.
Oldham County.
Here.
Oldham County Planning Commission.
Here.
Port of Indiana. Park Accessibility Advisory Council. Town of Clarksville.
Here.
Mike. Anybody else from Clarksville? Say hi.
Hello.
Hi, dear. Who else do you have with you?
This is Caleb Malloy, our associate planner, and Kendall Jackson, our communications director.
Thank you all for joining us.
Neil Turpin, the planning director.
Thank you all for joining us. And then Tark.
Here, Robert Monsma.
Thank you all for joining us. Do we have any advisory members on the line? I'm looking at the screen right now, trying to see if there's any on there. Greg, you might help me out. If anybody shows up, we'll do our best to recognize them at the end of the meeting. And thank you all so much for your attendance today. Thank you to our new chairman, Mr. Silliman, and our vice chair, Flannery O'Neill. Thank you all for committing to volunteering to do that. We are leaders this year. And so with that, let's get started.
You're very welcome. Next agenda item is the November TTCC meeting minutes. One item of note is that everyone was sent the meeting minutes, and the copies we received had a date of January 22. The meeting minutes that were actually included on, I said November. Those were actually January. weren't they? January, sorry. Again, they said January 22nd on what was received. The packet online included the correct date of January 14th. So other than that, I didn't see any other corrections needed.
Correct. All right, that sounds right to me.
So if
Yes.
there's a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make the motion with Jim's comments.
Second. Any discussion? If no other discussion, can I have all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Andy, will you provide us with the TPC report?
Certainly will. So our last TPC meeting was on January 22nd. It resembled quite a bit of our January PTCC meeting. A couple things of note, just like we have new officers for the TTCC, we have new officers for the TPC as well. So our 2026 TPC chair will be Judge Executive Jerry Summers from Bullitt County. And then our TPC vice chair is Deputy Mayor Nicole George from Louisville Metro. So they'll be our TPC chair and vice chair this year. We had some conversation about some of the funding changes, same things that were recommended for approval at this meeting last month. Same thing about the TIP amendments. Those amendments were processed. One thing of note is last I heard from Chris that we are still awaiting the feedback from Federal Highways Administration. As you all might remember, we did Amendment 2 and Amendment 3. Amendment 2 and Amendment 3 of the TIP. 2 was the exempt projects that didn't, or at least projects that didn't need a new conformity analysis. And so we were very hopeful that would be equal a quick turnaround in that while the Amendment 3 took its full time. And so at this time, at least, it hasn't played out quite that way. We're still eagerly waiting. We hope to get that response from Federal Highways hopefully any time now. But the Amendment 3, just so everybody knows, those were sent to comments from Federal Highways Administration to their federal partners. And Tanya Higdon gave, I think, a 30-day notice, and that would probably happen a day or two after that TPC meeting. So in other words, probably by the end of this month, those projects should all be get that conformity finding, and everybody should be in good shape. Move on to the next stage of getting them in the steps and whatnot. So an update on that for everybody. Goals and objectives were recommended, same things that were approved the other day or last month here. One thing of note, we talked about the federal certification review. I'll mention it now, just so while everybody's here and paying attention. I think last month I said it'd be May 5th through 7th. And certification review is going to be on May 6th and 7th. 5th through 7th was kind of the window. It's going to be narrowed. Now it's been narrowed down to the 6th and 7th. So May 6th would be the biggest day where the federal agencies will meet with us here in this room. And then that will be followed up by a public hearing the evening of May 6th. That meeting is likely to be in St. Matthews. And then May 7th will be kind of the closing ceremonies, if you will. And they'll present their preliminary findings on the review of the metropolitan planning process in our region. I think that about concludes that report. I'd be happy to answer any questions about that meeting.
Any questions for Andy? No, okay. Hearing none, we'll move on to item 4. Greg, do we have any public comment online?
We do not receive any prior to the meeting.
Okay, and anyone in the audience? Seeing none, okay, we'll move on to item 5, which is the Clarksville Trails Master Plan. Andy, do you want to introduce that?
Sure. So each year, or most years anyways, we make some amount of the metropolitan planning funds, the PL fund, you hear me talk about a lot, available to the local communities and all the agencies, I suppose, in the room, or on our committee and in our region, to do some planning efforts that they desire. And so recently, Clarksville has pursued that from KIPTA, and Neil Turpin is here with Bronte, and I'll hand it over to Neil to talk a little bit about the Clarksville Trails Master Plan.
Yeah, all right, so Clarksville for a long time, has been, slowly building out our trail network. We started obviously with the Greenway Trail about 30 years ago and have been adding, smaller additions to that over the past couple decades. To the point where we have a really nice trail system in the bottom third of the south third of Clarksville. Very useful, very, separated, so very safe to travel on. It's very well utilized. We implemented these changes further into the development of our new Main Street, our new Riverfront Drive area with very wide bike lanes. So the bike and pedestrian friendly nature has really taken hold in a lot of the new development in town. As part of this, we've been working on the master plan for the Trails Network. It is very good in the bottom third of the town, the south third, but then it kind of stops. So we were looking for a way to extend this and expand our trail system, our trail network northward, so more residents in Clarksville and the surrounding communities can utilize it and get around town safely and quickly from a variety of transportation methods. This is now an award-winning trail plan. We recently received the transportation plan award from the APA Indiana. So in March, we're going to be receiving that at the annual spring luncheon. So at this point, I'll hand it over to Bronte. She'll go over some of the details, and then if you have any questions, you can ask either of us.
All right, everyone. My name is Bronte Merle, and I'm community planner with Taylor Seifert Williams Design Group. Our firm works with the town of Clarksville as well as Clark Dietz, local engineering firm on this trail plan. I'm really excited to talk about it today. I think one of the really interesting things about Clarksville, and I think one of the unique constraints here, is like many suburban communities, we're very built out. And with that, there are with the interstates and all the annexation boundaries, making a trail system that connects throughout all of Clarksville is a little tricky. So we'll be talking about some of the different ways that we approach some of those challenges as far as finding actual north-south corridors to make some of those connections happen. So I'm gonna go forward on the slide, hopefully. Doesn't seem to want to go.
How about I did?
Oh, wait.
Working for you?
No, it's not working for me.
Sit real quick.
I can just keep talking. So what I'm gonna talk to you all about briefly, is just a little bit about the project timeline and process. I'll cover the existing conditions, but stay really high level. I'm not gonna bog you all down there. But then we just want to talk about the overall trail design, and then the proposed routes, and then the really fun part, the budget and implementation.
Good.
I'll go ahead and forecast this. It gets expensive. So I'm gonna. There we go. Okay, awesome. Project background. So on the screen, you can see a little bit of our project timeline. So we really started in November of 2024 with some internal kickoff, and the process ran through June of 2025. As far as community engagement, we really had 2 public meetings, an online survey, and then an online interactive map. And what was cool about the interactive map in the process is we were able to early on ask people where they wanted to see new routes in Clarksville, but also when we had preliminary concepts, we were able to upload those to the map and people were able to review those proposed alternate routes at the same time and provide comment on those as well. So that was really cool part of the process that we were able to include. We also had a core group of advisory committee members who helped guide the process throughout the way. As far as community engagement, we had with the public survey about 180 comments on that. We also had responses from the public meetings and the interactive map as well. I do want to call out a few highlights here. One of the things we learned from the survey is that people who took it really did want to utilize the trails more often than they do in Clarksville today. We also learned a lot about the amenities that people wanted to see. Lighting being a big one, of course, that really affects people's sense of safety, but also shading and signage. We heard a lot about dog poop bins. I can't really iterate just how much we heard about that in particular. So a lot of the comment that we got was really trying to think about how we can include amenities in strategic locations and really build those on as add-ons as far as the base trail costs. So we'll talk about those here a little bit later on. Okay, there we go. And so as far as existing conditions, like Neil said, there is a pretty strong trail network on the south end of town. Really, right now, it's about 8.7 miles of existing trail. And this fun little table here really breaks out some of the distribution of parks, trails, and sidewalks across these three sections of town. So South Clarksville currently has 86% of the town's existing trail network. And then if you look, it also has about 26% of the town's parks, and then about 11% of the existing sidewalk. Central Clarksville, as you move a little further north, does continue to have some trail. It has a lot more of the parks, but then more sidewalk as well. The important thing to note is that North Clarksville, once you really cross the 265 boundary, is where you start to see no trails, no parks. And then some sidewalk. However, it is one of our more affluent areas of town. So we're not trying to necessarily make the, more of those essential connections, but really make sure that people in those areas are connected to the same recreational amenities that the rest of the community is. At the same time, Central Clarksville is where we have some of our lower income communities, and it's also where we have a lot of more of that commercial employment density. So really trying to bridge some of those connections for people so that they have walkable routes. Okay, so I do want to talk a little bit about some of the routes and the design of the trail system itself. So typically we had 4 different trail models that we built into this. Because of the nature of Clarksville's layout, we really had to think about on-street and off-street trail systems. And when on-street came into play, we didn't have a lot of right-of-way to play with. So really trying to keep it to a pretty standard 10 to 12 foot trail path. We would have, of course, our curved version, our version without a curb. But then when we got to our off-street trails, I think one of the things that was really interesting here is there are a lot of places that I'll show you here in a moment where we have to work with easements that run behind neighborhoods in order to create this trail system. So we needed to come up with a model as well that really shows some kind of fencing for residents and shows how this trail system can really work right behind someone's backyard, so that they don't feel as nervous about it, because that is a fair thing to be concerned about. So really working with residents and taking these to public meetings, showing them that, hey, we can do this in a way that's really going to still work for your neighborhood and is going to be an amenity for your neighborhood, and go ahead and start to approach some of those hesitations people have about sidewalks and trails, and connecting to different neighborhoods along their own street. So here is a map of the trail system, and just because of Clarksville's very long shape, it is difficult to get onto a presentation slide. So I'm just kind of zooming into 2 different halves of the town. And so the proposed trail system really takes it from 8.7 miles to 19 miles, so more than doubling Clarksville's trail system. The bottom section that I'm showing you that's kind of zoomed in here, everything that's a solid line is existing trail, and everything that's a dotted line is the proposed trail. So the proposed trail would really take us from the Discovery Trail, which is running, can't really point with this, but it's running parallel to Lewis and Clark Parkway, that big red line that's kind of going east-west. So connecting from there, we've got 2 major trail routes that would then connect through up towards North Clarksville. One would really run using a connection of different streets and easements up through to Lapping Park, and the other one would run through some more commercial areas and really taking advantage of town-owned properties in that process. Using and identifying town-owned properties as major trail connection points was really essential in this process because of the tightened right-of-ways and just the built-out scenario of Clarksville. And then just to show you what that northern end starts to look like. So once we get to Lapping Park is when it gets really tricky, because we do have Silver Creek, and Silver Creek and the interstate make it nearly impossible to have a trail connection going from Central to North Clarksville without crossing the creek, and without going outside of the town boundary. So with that, we really had to propose 2 different pedestrian bridges. And Silver Creek is not just a little creek, it's 100 feet wide in some places, so it's pretty substantial. So when we start to talk about pricing, that's where one of the major costs coming in is to bridge that connection. But once you do, you can then get access to those and really unlock those North Clarksville neighborhoods. North Clarksville is one of the trickier places again to make a lot of these trail connections happen because of just how built out it is and because of all the different annex pieces in there. So this is just a quick look at our central Clarksville area and some of the connections made here. So this path, the yellow line here is the Discovery Trail, and this really shows that we get some of that trail connection utilizing a town-owned property that's in the works and discussions of being redeveloped now. And really that trail is gonna connect through that property there as it gets redeveloped onto Lewis and Clark Parkway. And then working with the town-owned property now that was the mall there, really working the trail connection through there to the Lincoln Park neighborhood, and that's one of our lower income neighborhoods. So it'll directly connect the Lincoln Park neighborhood to trail systems connecting through the commercial on Lewis and Clark Parkway, but also connecting northwards towards Veterans Parkway as well. And then if you go a little bit further north, this just zooms in and shows, again, some of those trail typologies and connections as we go towards Lapping Park. So you can see where those two pedestrian bridges would be. That little pink circle highlights where we would start to cross Silver Creek in Lapping Park. So you can see we really having to cross there. We're crossing over one of the tributaries to Silver Creek as well, and really coming up the ridge line there because it is just so hilly back there. We went back and walked it and I fell a lot. All right, I'm just gonna keep us going so I don't take up too much more time. And so this is just a real quick look again at the North Clarksville situation. The biggest one we ran into, so with the different town boundaries here, and the different property lines, what we really ran into was trying to find that connection from, I would say, our Deer Run neighborhood towards the southern end of this, up to the Plum Creek neighborhoods up to the north. So with that, it's really going to require close coordination and cooperation with REMC, who's been a great partner with the town already. But to make this connection happen, we kind of need to work with them either as a trail connection on the front end of the property or towards the back end of their property along their levee. There really is not a feasible route otherwise, because of several different logistics, but mainly there's a cemetery along the road up here on Payne Colder that just does not allow any trail to be running alongside of it. So with that, we had to go towards the REMC side. So it's tricky and it's complicated, but it is a single connected path towards the end of the day. So what we've done is really propose two alternate paths to make that connection. So that's just a quick look at that. The North Clarksville piece, I think one of the really interesting things is that they do have some existing trail back there already. That's running behind the neighborhood, so we really just get to come in and make that nicer and work better for the neighborhood, so, because it's pretty down over now. And then what I will do is just talk briefly through the fun part, the budget and implementation. So in total, this is going to be a whopping 3.58 million, because of these bridge pieces again. So really, the thing with this is figuring out how to phase it and really set some of those larger items further into the future so that the town can really plan strategically about those funding sources. And so with that, what we've done is when we sat down with all of our committee members, we tried to identify the most essential aspects that needed to come first. And of course, making the live work connection in Central Clarksville is the most necessary connection to make. So that's the one we set as like that top priority. So you'll see that as the yellow line on the map, it's really what's running, connecting Central Clarksville from the Discovery Trail up through your commercial areas, your Lincoln Park neighborhood, up through Lapping Park. That's really the first bit that you bite off. And that's one of the less expensive pieces to bite off as well. So going with that first phase, so that'll make that live work connection most essential. And then we've got our phase 2, which would take that other connection through Central Clarksville as well. And then we have our phase 3, which would then be going more towards North Clarksville. So that's the really fun bit. And we also had conversation with our redevelopment commission about how these can really be moved around. So if our phase 4 bit, which is going up towards Blackiston Mill Road, becomes a higher priority, it can be shifted around as well. But that's generally the phasing for this project. We also included in the plan a series of different amenity add-ons, noting all the different priorities. One of the major ones would be trail mile markers as a safety feature, so that if anyone's having an emergency on the trail, they can, pick up their phone, call, tell the police where they are. That was one of the kind of bottom line pieces there. But lighting, trail access parking, water stations, rest stations, security cameras, these were all big things that came out of community input as well. And then the last thing to note is we have included in the plan towards the end just a list of different funding strategies, a lot of Indiana-based ones, of course, that the town can use going forward to help bring the trail to life. So that's just a high-level overview of the project. I guess if anyone has questions for me and Neil, happy to take them. Thanks.
I think that's a very impressive plan to serve a large area. It looks like a lot of population. It's a great plan. Anyone have any questions for our guests?
I just have one because I'm a big cyclist and I use those trails a lot. I love them. Do you have is there any tie-in to the South Mountain Trail at all, or do you have any?
So we discussed that as a more long-term goal. The tricky thing is right now, the Monon South Trail kind of ends right towards the northern end of Sellersburg. So I think it would really be more of a long-term effort working with Sellersburg and the county, with Delaware County as well, to make that connection, but I think the town's really interested in that possibility with the Greenway Trail and you've got all kinds.
You guys got the corridor that goes right up
Yeah.
to where it would be closest to me,
Yeah.
so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that'd be incredible.
I have a question, but I've got a comment, I suppose. Again, this is an example of the use of the PL dollars that come from KIPTA to do these planning efforts. And so I owe feds a work program for fiscal 27 by the end of the month. And so I can't give you all a number today on how much would be available for fiscal 27, but please do be thinking about if you have any ideas for a similar effort. I think over the last couple of years, Brady, remind me, it's probably been the 200 to 250,000 federal range that we have available.
Closer to 200.
Yeah, and I think both years we were able to fund two studies over the last couple of years. That's been the recent past precedent. With our MTP update coming spring of 27, that might be a reason there might be a little bit less this go around, but there's also a couple of reasons why it could be a little bit more. So stay tuned on that. Probably next month for some information on that. Next month or April at the latest.
All right, thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have a presentation about the air quality status update with our vice chair, Planner and Neil.
Good afternoon, I'm Flannery O'Neill, representing Air Pollution Control District, and I'm here with an update on our air quality designation status for ozone. Ozone is one of the 6 criteria pollutants that are there are specific levels set for or specific levels set for as standards. We attain 5 out of the 6 of these standards. They're called the NACs, and ozone is the one criteria pollutant where we have not met attainment. So in 2022, we submitted a request for redesignation for the Kentucky portion of the area with data saying that we were meeting that standard, and that standard is 70 parts per billion. In around the same time frame, our partners in Indiana for Clark and Floyd County also went out with this request for redesignation. They were promptly redesignated in about 134 days. So they put in an application in February of 22 and they were approved July 5th, 2022. Unfortunately, our story is a little bit different. In April of 2023, EPA had reviewed our request and had initially gone out for comment proposing to approve our request. But sadly, Canada caught on fire. And so, we started to experience ozone exceedances in our area. If you may recall, in 2023, we had numerous days throughout the summer of 2023 where we were experiencing quite significant impacts from that wildfire smoke coming from Canada and impacting the region. So when that happens, the EPA stopped reviewing the request that we had to be in attainment, and subsequently determined or decided that they would propose to deny that request. Clicker. Going slow. Would you mind advancing the slide?
Sure.
Thank you.
Well, I think my computer froze. I don't think it's a clicker. It might be my computer.
Well, while you work on that, so because of these ozone exceedances that we experienced in the summer of 2023, the EPA at the beginning of last year decided that they were going to withdraw that proposed acceptance and agreement. And they decided that they were going to, based on violations of the NAAQS experienced during that summer of 2023, they were believed that we did not meet the criteria to be redesignated as attainment. So next step in the process, we submitted last summer, we prepared and submitted last summer what's called an exceptional events demonstration, which is basically saying these wildfires were a situation outside of our control and outside of our ability to plan and control. And so we requested that on a certain set of days, when we were being heavily impacted by that wildfire smoke, we believe that should be excluded from our data set, so that we would be in attainment for that ozone standard for 2023. So if the EPA concurs on that, then those dates would be removed from our data set. And the EPA reviewed that last summer, and on August 12th, they concurred with 6 of the 9 days that we submitted, which allowed us then for 2023 to meet that ozone standard. But we're still awaiting a decision on do we attain the ozone standards. And on January 29th of this year, EPA has formally motioned that they are denying the request to redesignate the area in ozone attainment. They found that we preliminarily violated the standards in June 2023, and even with some of that air quality data removed because of that exceptional event, we still are exceeding that standard when we look at the data. So they look at it over a 3-year period from 2022 to 2024, we are still exceeding that standard. They also they made another proposed action, which is now on the Federal Register for comment, and they're proposing with that same exceptional event package that we put together, that we are in attainment of the moderate non-attainment standard, and that they're with that action, they are finalizing their approval of those 6 days of the exceptional event request. So next steps, we are evaluating air quality or wildfire events because we do continue to experience air quality issues from Canadian wildfires. We experienced them in 2024. We experienced them in 2025. In fact, Canada at this moment, even though we're in winter, is on fire. So we expect that we're going to continue to experience impacts from that. So we are looking to do another exceptional event demonstration. We are continuing to evaluate the air quality trends in 2025. But I have heard from EPA that these actions that they have taken do not impact conformity, and we will continue to use our existing budgets. and not on the slide, but also this has no impact on the request to remove the reformulated gas. Those are separate considerations, and we are expecting a decision. We have not heard any sort of decision on that yet. We'll share that as soon as we hear anything. And we expect a decision on that, or we're hoping for that in the spring. So kind of a complicated situation, and I know I've got some of our colleagues from the Division for Air Quality, so I will open it up if they have anything else they'd like to add.
Hi, this is Emma Moria with the Kentucky Division for Air Quality. We don't have much to add. We are, the Attorney General has also filed a motion that they're going to challenge the decision in the Sixth Circuit, and our own legal team might be exploring their own options for challenging that decision as well. But we can also do a petition for reconsideration within 60 days. So any of those, we don't know the exact path yet, but we are evaluating all of those at the moment.
Yes, still new information, and we're in processing and in conversation with EPA and other, partners, and what are our next steps. But these are our immediate plans.
Next question. So one of my, call it a pet peeve, whatever you want to call it. When the region was first designated non-attainment, as I recall, I think the only violating monitors were in Jefferson County. In other words, there were violating monitors in Bullitt or Oldham or Clark or Floyd. I believe that's correct to say that. And when the EPA did its designations, it said something to the effect of all 5 counties, all 5 KIPTA counties, if you will, are part of this non-attainment area. And it was like, okay, why is that? And they said, because like 2 standards ago, that was the non-attainment area. And I'm like, well, okay, doesn't seem fair, but okay. Air doesn't stop at the political boundaries, does it? But anyways, it seems as if though, these actions of 2 different states or 2 different EPA regions is probably the issue here. They said we were married. They said you must be married. Now they are saying you're very different. Region 5 in the Indiana side said, good, go quickly, as you expeditiously said, we're good. On the other side, in the Southeast region and Region 4, not as fast and therefore not as successful, I suppose. Is that, am I summing that up?
You are, yes, and thank you for highlighting. That's part of the, the difference between the decision that was made in the Indiana side versus Kentucky is we are in 2 separate regional offices. We're in Region 4 here in Kentucky, and then Indiana is under Region 5. And so they have that independent decision-making process, even though we are, about an area that is crossing 2 states. And we're not unique in that. There's several other metropolitan areas where they are crossing regional boundaries, but it makes it interesting.
Those budgets that we talk about when we do these amendments in the conformity process, those budgets are regional 5-county budgets. I think it's always been an option for us to create Indiana budgets and Kentucky budgets, but we've always said we're better off with a regional budget. Gives a little wiggle room, maybe even as a reason to do that. Well, now all bets are off. It seems like, I suppose, on what the future of this holds if there's 2 different approaches.
Right. So certainly, I know that will we should have more conversation and ask more questions of EPA, both of our regions, as we continue to move forward.
If I can ask one more, I promise just one more. You mentioned about the you said something to the effect of they said it's good to go with the 21 through 23 data so we met that moderate standard or the timeline for the moderate. Therefore, are we avoiding moving into the, I think it's the serious category or whatever?
Right. They're taking that action, and that action that is currently proposed and out on the Federal Register for us to comment, any of us may comment on, is putting saying that we met that moderate standard.
Because we want to avoid serious, because I think
Right.
that has some consequences in
Yeah.
terms of
Yeah.
other things.
Yeah.
I believe Claire has a report.
Oh, yes, Claire?
Yeah, I just wanted to jump off what Flannery said about the comment period. It is open, I believe, until March 2nd, and we are drafting comments to support what they are saying that we attained by that attainment date. So just in case that there are any adverse comments against us, if you all felt inclined to also draft comments in support of that attainment by the attainment date, I'm sure they would be more than welcome and happily received by us and the folks at APCD.
Would you want that from individuals or from TTCC as a whole?
Or
Yes.
from KIPTA?
Or KIPTA.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we'd be happy. I'm sure Randy can craft the finest comments that have ever been crafted. With the perspective of what it means to our process. Therefore, what it means to your all's projects that are part of our process, right? It's critically important that these conformity findings go smoothly. And so it's really important that we know what the rules of the game are, or what our status is at all times, and how we need to act or react to certain things. So it's always been a challenging thing around here, and that is, this region's always been non-attainment or maintenance of something or other, whether it's PM 2.5 or ozone. And so it's nothing new for the process necessarily. We're still gonna have to do the same things, the conformity process, but getting some clarity on some of these things I think is essential, and hopefully getting a favorable announcement or an understanding of this, but yeah.
Get the wind to blow in the other direction one day.
Basically,
Well, so I will, I'll send Greg a link directly into the Federal Register, so you all can take a look at that and, feel inclined, you can make a comment.
Okay. If it's okay with TTCC, and unless the same thing with TPC, we'll go ahead and create those on behalf of KIPTA. Is that? I don't know that we need action for that. Is that?
I mean, would you want to bring those to the TPC and TTCC for approval, or just
We could.
draft those and
Okay. Randy, we'll try to come up with some comments, and
if there's time?
I was gonna ask if we could get not just APCD's, but also DAQ's comments, get a copy of those, so that we sort of will be saying something that's different from what you were saying.
that's a good point.
Right. Okay.
Great idea. Unless there's any objection, we'll make plans to do that.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, we have the performance management plan. Aaron Mansell, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. So today's discussion will focus on PM1 safety performance measures that tracks the fatalities and serious injuries across the KIPTA region. So the FHWA's performance measures framework consists of 5 national performance and
Right. Should we move you think the blue cable to you?
Maybe.
I'll grab that Ethernet cable. This Ethernet cable around because we get more reliable.
There we go.
Thank you,
There you go,
sir.
sir.
Yes. So the FHWA's performance measures framework consists of 5 national performance measures and PM1, 2, 3 to 5. And right now we're talking about the PM1, which is the safety. And under federal performance requirements, NPOs must either establish their own safety targets or support the targets established by states. In our case, would be Indiana and Kentucky. So KIPTA staff will be recommending that we support the state's targets. Supporting the state's targets helps maintain consistency and alignments between regional planning efforts and investment strategies. It's also important to note that these targets do not impact the MTP or the current program project. So before requesting the action, I would like to review the current trends in our safety data set. So if you look at the slide above, we would notice that fatalities region-wide rose or peaked in 2023, and serious injuries, but has been dropping consistently since then. Look at fatality rate also has dropped. Serious injuries, you can look at region-wide, it's dropping very well, which is a good trend. Now look at the last section there, which is the non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries. So that one consists of the cyclist, the pedestrian. So that has been increasing steadily since I think 2024, but we saw a very interesting drop in 2025. Well, that drop is still higher than the 2021 data set. So that's just very important to note. So overall, this data shows that the region is making meaningful progress in reducing fatalities and serious injuries, particularly following the 2025 and 3 peak. And we've been seeing a continuous downward trend. However, vulnerable travelers or road users are still at risk. So now let's delve into the fatalities trend by the counties. Jefferson County obviously has the major share of these data set. However, we've observed an interesting decline in fatalities. Look at Blair County. There's a moderate fluctuation in Blair County, although we are seeing significant drop since 2023. Oldham County also has a similar trend. We are seeing the decline. Clark County initially quadrupled in 2022, maintained over 2023 and 4, but we have an interesting drop in 2025. Floyd County has also maintained the very low fatalities, but we had that initial spike in 2023, but has declined all through. So looking at the serious injuries now. So Jefferson County, as we talked about, having the major share of these data points, I've had this 23% reduction since 2022, which is a very good trend. Blair County remains moderately fluctuating. That is also key to note. Oldham County was initially observing the decline, but there was a small bump in 2024 and a consistent bump in 2025, bumping up. Clark County has always maintained a steady serious injury, but in 2025, we had a slight increase in Clark County, while Floyd County generally has observed that steady trend. Now for the non-motorized vehicles, non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries, Jefferson County has initially had a steady increase, but dropped significantly from 2024 to 2025, which is worth noting of. Blair counties share the same trend, but this is the other counties that they have very low numbers. It's important to note here. So that's key here. Oldham County similar, very low numbers. Clark similar, and Floyd. So these trends are important because they help also understand how basically data-driven planning across jurisdiction. So now regarding safety targets, the NPOs, as I mentioned earlier, are required to either set their own safety targets or support the target established by the state. And today, KIPP staff will be recommending we support the state targets as we initially discussed earlier, and overall on the screen at the current 2022 to 2026 state targets. Yeah, we would recommend ETTC today versus support the state based on targets. Thank you. If you have any questions, please.
I've got two questions. One, so if there was a pedestrian fatality with a rail with train, is that included in this? Or is that considered separate because is train excluded? Is this only with vehicles?
That's a good question. I don't know.
Because it happens occasionally.
Yes, and I know it wasn't your question, but I know that it's rolled off the data since then, but we had a either serious injury or fatality involving a member of the Amish community, not too many years ago, and they were non-motorized, right? They were in their buggy when a car or truck hit them, and so there are. So my point being, I think it captures some of those things that aren't the traditional crashes or single vehicle crash or vehicle crashes. I don't know.
It should be a very small percentage, I'm just curious. So you're suggesting or recommending the, following the state recommendation, how does it compare to if we were to utilize the previous model that KIFTA had utilized in past years?
So this would be our second year of saying, hey, we're gonna choose our option to support the states. Those targets that he has on the screen, remember, those are very prescribed. Why did we choose 22 to 26? It's because we have to choose 2022 to 2026 as a 5-year rolling target. Us doing this analysis in early 2026, well, it's a target that has 4 years in the rearview mirror and only 1 year looking forward, not even a full year, I suppose, looking forward. And so we have that data. We might have to get back to you on some of that data because I don't know that we'll have it. We don't have it handy, do we? Because we have the regional targets if we needed them, I suppose, if that's the desire. I don't recall. I think they're probably right in that same range. I don't think they were much higher, much lower on the rates, I should say. Of course, the fatalities and serious injury targets, those would be numbers that are gonna be much larger for the statewide numbers. One of the reasons that it's tricky for us in this region, dare I say there's a parallel to the air quality thing. When the two states have a different approaches to their target setting, I mean, which one do we follow? And frankly, that's kind of why we chose to go out on a limb or go out on our own and create those regional targets back in the day. Because we didn't get that guidance from Federal Highways until a little bit later, said, hey, you can support both states' targets. You support the state's targets by implementing these projects and policies in your long-range planning and projects in your TIP, to be clear. And that's something that I think our SS4A program shows that in big time. Aaron Marcelli and I were on a meeting today just with their staff about safety projects in Indiana. So I don't think we have those numbers right now to provide. You don't have them handy, do you?
We don't have it, but in addition, you should know that it's a 2022 to 2026, and we have the 2022 to 2025 already. So it will limit us the fact that we won't be optimistic now. Target setting will always bring a death rate of a higher death rate based on how the trend line goes, because it's pure statistic. We have to use like a regression house whatever to ensure it's well fit to get this kind of target. For us to be optimistic, we would need like a negative number of crashes.
Yeah, it gets to that point. If it's increasing, it can be done.
Yeah.
How about we'll send it out to the TTCC? We'll send those numbers out to you guys.
Do you need action on this today?
What we would need action on is what we are required to do by the end of the month. That is to submit to KYTC and NDOT our choice.
Okay.
Our choice is either here's our targets, local targets, or words that say we commit to supporting the state's targets. We got to choose one of those two paths, and staff are advising to do the latter altogether. Remember, there's not the word aspirational always comes up in this conversation. These targets and that framework that we're required to be in those 5 years does not allow any room for aspirationalness, if that's a word. I just made it up. Because again, 4 years are in the history books, and so our MTP targets and whatnot are where we say things like Vision Zero and Towards Zero deaths type things, and that really
These are all zeros in that aspirational goal. But we can't do that.
We can't do that because 4 years are in history books, and so we can't say a target of 0 fatalities when 4 of the 5 years have already happened. And for that matter, in the first 6 weeks of this year, there's been fatalities that have happened. And so we can't even say 0 for this year type of thing. In good faith. So that's the reason. That's our justification for this choice. We are happy to crunch the numbers in virtually any way that this TTCC or TTC says, KIFTA staff, can you run some numbers for us? We will always do that. If you all have feedback on that, please let us know. We are happy to do that. Whatever helps you guys develop your safety numbers or safety projects, we are happy to do that. Whether that's crunching the numbers the way Federal Highways has us crunch them numbers, or the ways that the SS4A plan crunched the numbers, which was different. We were very happy to take this wherever you guys want us to.
Well, I asked the question. I don't think you need to spend your time doing that.
Okay.
So do we have a motion? I guess we're asking for a motion to recommend the state's method. Is that what we're asking for?
That would be our.
The state's target?
Yes.
We have a motion for that. Do you have a second?
Second.
Any discussion, any further discussion?
Well, I think Andy explained it well, like on the whole, why we can't do vision zero kind of targets, so I think it's good to be aware of. That was just my comment.
The formulaic method. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none opposed, the motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next, item 8, Kentucky Highway Plan, Darian?
Brady or Chris, will you help hand out the handouts that Darian has produced to the folks, at least to make sure the folks at the table all have one that don't have them?
Yeah, thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Today, I'm going to be talking to you about the 2026 Kentucky Recommended Highway Plan and what has changed since the 2024 enacted highway plan. KIPTA staff have reviewed the 2026 Kentucky Recommended Highway Plan and wanted to provide the committee with a summary of our findings. On this slide, there are 2 QR codes. The first one will take you to the recommended highway plan, and the second is for everyone that is joining virtually because it contains multiple spreadsheets that are in the physical handouts that we have here for everyone in the room. 2 of those spreadsheets are titled 2026 Funding Comparison by KYTC Districts and 2026 Highway Plan Funding Comparison by MPO and add contain data from the 2024 enacted highway plan for the districts that are outside of the KIPTA region. While everyone is pulling up the documents, I'm going to give an overview of the highway plan. On January 7th, KYTC released the 2026 recommended highway plan, which is how major highway improvement projects are scheduled for the next 6 years, are submitted to and enacted by the 2026 General Assembly. The 2026 Kentucky recommended highway plan outlines scheduled highway project activities for the remainder of fiscal year 2026 and for the fiscal year 2027 through fiscal year 2032, 6-year planning period. KYTC uses highway system performance data to address bridge and pavement needs through scenario planning. KYTC also employs the SHIFT Strategic Highway Investment Formula for Tomorrow mechanism for ranking proposed highway projects across the state. The SHIFT prioritization tool uses technical data analyses to produce scores for projects being considered for the highway plan. This graph shows the breakdown of federal and state highway funding levels available for obligation from 2027 through 2032. The darker blue represents the federal funds, the yellow is the state priority projects, SPP, gray is the state match, and orange is the local match. The other colors represent funding for different projects, including the I-69 Ohio River Crossing Project and the Brent Spence Bridge Project. It is important to recognize that this recommended highway plan is carrying forward many state-funded projects that were identified in past enacted highway plans, but funding has not been available to advance them. These projects are identified by the SPP Fund Code, a funding category with significant competition for very limited funds. The top table shows what SPP funds should be available from fiscal year 2027 through fiscal year 2032. The bottom table shows what amount of SPP funds were included in the 2024 recommended highway plan, the amount from the 2024 enacted highway plan, and the amount of SPP dollars that KYTC forecasts to be available from 2024 to 2026. Here's a breakdown of Bullitt County projects included in the 2026 recommended highway plan. The total, which is over 433 million, and from the 2024 enacted highway plan, which is over 252 million, and the cost difference from the new plan, which is an $18 million decrease. You can see there are 21 total projects in the plan, 1 new project, and 5 that have been removed or completed since the 2024 enacted highway plan. It appears that there may have been some duplicate projects in the 2024 enacted plan that have since been removed, which could account for the budget decrease. So key differences from the 2026 recommended plan and the 2024 enacted plan for Bullitt County are that 5 projects have been removed or completed. 1 new project has been added, which is a bridge project, and there are 21 total projects in the plan. And the budget has decreased $18 million. And the bulk of the projects are for bridges, pavement, reconstruction, and congestion mitigation. Here is a breakdown of Oldham County projects included in the 2026 recommended highway plan. Total amount, which is over $357 million. The 2024 highway plan total, which was over $353 million, and the cost difference in the new plan is a $3.3 million decrease. You can see that there are 15 total projects. There are 0 new projects, and 5 have been removed or completed since the 2024 enacted highway plan. So the key differences from the 2026 recommended plan and the 2024 enacted plan for Oldham County are that 5 projects have been removed or completed. There are 15 projects total for Oldham County in the 2026 plan, and the budget has decreased $3.3 million. And the bulk of the projects are for safety, spot improvements, major widening, and congestion mitigation. And here's a breakdown of Jefferson County. From the 2026 recommended highway plan, the total amount is over $2 billion. The 2024 highway plan was over $1.9 billion, and the cost difference from the new plan is a $50 million increase. You can see there are 105 projects total in the plan, 4 new projects, and 36 have been removed or completed since the 2024 enacted highway plan. In the bottom right, you can see the breakdown of top project types, which includes 40 bridge projects, 18 pavement projects, and 17 safety projects. So the key differences between the 2026 recommended plan and the 2024 enacted plan for Jefferson County are that 36 projects have been removed or completed, 4 new projects have been added, so there are 105 projects total, and the budget has increased $50 million, and the bulk of the projects are for bridges, pavement, and safety. Here's a graphic that shows KYTC's process and timeline for the highway plan. We are currently in the middle part of the process. The General Assembly is expected to finalize funding for the first 2 years of the plan by April 15th, 2026. Once the enacted highway plan has been published in June 2026, KIPTA staff will provide you all with a summary of our review, and we will update the regional comparison spreadsheets. Between now and then, we're here for your questions, and now I'm going to leave it open for questions or comments.
Do we have any questions for Darian? Pretty thorough review.
Yeah, I think, so, again, there's not a whole lot that's arguably not a whole lot's changed. The same how it's most of the same projects. It's probably another way of looking at it. And so, just to hope everybody is already cognizant of this, but now we're in that time period on that graphic that there's moving and shaking that will happen in Frankfurt. And so we'll see how that turns out in the enacted highway plan. Hopefully there's lots of desire to spend lots of money in the KIPTA region. And if there is, that's fantastic. And if there's not, then that's less fantastic.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Brady, can you help us with the tracking sheets for the MPO dedicated funding programs?
Sure. Nothing spectacular to update, just a couple of small changes, just want everyone to be aware of. That staff is going to do with the tracking sheet, so MPO dedicated tracking sheets, a downloadable link that can be found on KIPTA's website on our tip page. It displays the current MPO dedicated funds that have been approved by the TPC for both Kentucky and Indiana for all of our sub-allocated funding sources. So very important document to keep track of, be accurate with. A couple small changes that KIPTA staff wanted to make is just to improve the visibility and consistency of how we update the document. So currently there is no exact policy. It's just kind of, we typically update it as we do admin mods and amendments to the project. So that could be twice in a month. It could be once every 2 to 3 months, depending on how common changes happen. And what we don't want is people to view this tracking sheet online, and the tracking sheet be out of date. Have numbers that are reflective of old TPC actions that haven't yet been reflected in our TIF or something. So we don't want any confusion there. What we want to do is be consistent with it. And so what I'm planning on doing is have a new version of the tracking sheet updated on the website every single month, probably the day after TPC, even if there aren't any changes. So if there aren't any changes that month, just like this month, I don't have anything to present to you, we're still going to have an updated version after TPC, so that you know, depending on the time of the month, when the latest version for the tracking sheet has been updated. Another slight change is whenever there are changes that require TTCC and TPC action, I'm going to post a draft version of the tracking sheet that include staff recommendations, or as appropriate to the TPC, your TTCC recommendations for the review in the memos of the meeting agendas. So it'll be the same as usual. I'll state everything of all the funding changes that are being proposed, but you'll also have a link to the tracking sheet so that you can look at that document if you so desire in preparation for meetings. And the last little bit here is hoping to simplify it. If you've ever looked through our tracking sheet, it's a very long, complicated document with lots of rows. There's over 1,000 rows in the Excel spreadsheet, many of which are empty. And they're empty for specific reasons. There are formulas that get messed up if you mess with certain things, but I think there's an opportunity to simplify and make the document a lot easier real quick. And so those are just a couple changes coming to the MPO dedicated tracking sheet to consider for the future. If anyone else has any ideas or questions, I'm happy to hear them.
Brady, we like the simplification when we can do it, right? Any other questions?
I'll just make a comment. I think it's a great idea. Sounds like all moving in the right direction, makes it easier for recipients of funding to see where they're at in the process. And you know, KIPTA does two things. Number one, they award a lot of funding for transportation projects. And that tracking sheet really is the list of awards and who got what. And then the other thing is KIPTA maintains a tip, you know, and that's a programming document required by the feds. It says money coming from various sources is programmed and went through the MPO process. So this is really cool. This is great. I think it'll help our people, help us help you, and I forget what the rest of that comment is. Help us help you, help them, or whatever.
Go back to the office and the wise man that works there.
Yeah. I'll ask. But anyhow, thanks, Brady. That's great.
And as usual, if any of you have questions about the status of your projects, or you have questions about how to interpret the tracking sheet that's always available to you online, call me, email me, happy to answer whatever questions in Monday.
Thank you, Brady. I'd like to go back just real quick to item 8 when Darian was speaking of the Kentucky Highway Plan. Greg, you and Andy posted, for those of you online, you posted the support material that was handed out here in the room.
Correct.
So it's available there.
And that would have been, you remember the QR code she had up there? That would have been the QR code on the right side. One of the QR codes was the highway plan, just a link to the YTC website. And that other QR code was for a site that you will find those sheets that were handed out in the room today.
Thank you. See, next we got a presentation from more new KIPTA staff, the red flag inventory update. Alex?
Okay, hello. So in recent weeks, I updated our red flag inventory map. This is available on our data hub online. So it's a collection of map layers dictating environmental and structural information, as well as site locations that might be areas of interest to developers and planners, or anybody who just might so happen to be interested in this information. So I tried to keep it a bit similar to our previous map, so that when people are looking at our new one, they can kind of interpret it from the previous one as well. So we have our 6 collection of layers at the bottom, featuring layers with the category of mining and minerals, and then we also have environmental layers, we have hazardous materials, and then sites, infrastructure, and water resources. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn some of these on. And you can see some of these are grayed out while some aren't. That's because I have them set for visibility standards. So if you're zoomed out too far, some will be disabled. Just visually, because it can clutter the map and it makes it slower to process stuff. So as you zoom in, those layers will become visible. So like this one, I have wetlands turned on, but I also have our Kentucky groundwater wells layer turned on. Let's also turn on, we can turn on airports. We'll turn on bridges, and we can do historic places. So if you have a particular area of interest that you're wanting to look at, you can go into our search bar. And for this demonstration, I'm just going to use KIPTA as an example. So that little dot zoomed in is our KIPTA home office. And now you can see you have quite a few layers turned on. There's also this table feature in the bottom here where it shows all of your current active layers. And you can also refer to this button up in the top corner for your legend if you have interest in what the symbology is for your layers. So that is a nice feature. I've also added the ability to change the base map gallery. I like a topographic base map, but sometimes people might want like a light gray canvas or a navigation. So I've made that editable to the user's choosing. I've also added a filter feature. So this allows the user to filter through specific data layers to find information that they specifically want. So for this example, we'll do our groundwater wells. And let's just look at active ones. So we'll add the clause and we'll change our active attribute down to status is, and we'll make a unique feature for all active groundwater wells. And if we turn that on, you can see, I'll turn it on and off so you can see how the features disappear. But if you look in this area, you'll see when I turn it off, we have some more groundwater wells. So there's currently some probably inactive groundwater wells by us. And these are the active ones. It also automatically updates in our table down at the bottom. So if I turn this off and we scroll, you can see that now we have every groundwater well. And if we turn it on, we have just the active ones. We can also filter by map extent. So say I was only interested in the groundwater wells in this specific area, I could hit this button in our table feature and filter by the map extent. And now you can see that goes down to 37 groundwater wells. So that's a nice feature that you can also look at. I've also added the ability to make clause sets. So let's do one for wetlands. And we'll do a clause set. And we'll make this an and clause. So we'll make it to where the type is a unique value of, there we go. We'll do Palestrine types and we'll do acres for greater than, and we'll do half an acre. And if you turn this on, you can see around the interstate here, we had quite a few wetland areas that are now gone because they don't meet the area requirement or they don't meet the type requirement. So if I turn it back on, all of those become active. And if we have our filter on, you can see that they are no longer there. And like I said, that will also automatically update in our table as well. And similarly, you can see with the filter I've provided, there are 2,204 total wetlands within the KIPTA area that satisfy this filter. But if I filter by map extent, you can see now there's only 18 in this area. So users have the option to filter either through this feature up here. You can also filter through the action set on the table specifically So I've only made it to where you can have 4 active filters within our filter tab, but if you have 40 layers open and you want to individually filter all of them, you do have that option as well. You can also export all of the data you want to know about into a table feature, which is a nice addition. I tried to up the interactivity for this map as opposed to what our previous red flag inventory map was. And another way I did that was through this feature right here, which is called the Near Me feature. And so this allows users to look at the specific features that lie within a particular buffer zone of either a point, line, or polygon area of their designation. So it is automatically set to where if you have a search area provided, it will do a 1 mile buffer zone around that area. But users can update that to any numerical number, or you can do miles or meters, kilometers. There's a lot of options for the buffer zones. And that will show you all of the features that lie within a 1 mile buffer zone around KIPTA. I've also made it to where users can export this information into a PDF if you ever want to refer back to it. And you can also export it to a table. This is also linked to the filter feature. So if I only wanted to look at the active groundwater wells within a 1 mile area of KIPTA, then I could export that specific information into a table. I've also made it to where all of the features within the area, you can see the exact location difference from your point, line, or polygon. So you can go through and see like which groundwater wells are closest, which are furthest away, information like that. And you can, like I said, you can do that in a point, line, or polygon. So perhaps you were interested in the information within a 1 mile buffer zone of the interstate. You could just draw your line feature and you can see all of that. It takes a little bit of time to process depending on how big of an area you're doing, but it gives users the option to filter through data and export whatever information they might want for their projects. Any questions?
I've got a couple. Do you have sinkholes on here?
Yes.
So if Oldham County were to identify a sinkhole during a property drainage inspection, what's the best way to report that? Can we go to you to get this on this map, or do we need to go to the geologic survey, report it to them, and then you obtain data from them?
I have obtained data through a few different sources. So I believe USGS is where I did get the sinkhole data. So I periodically check when sources have been updated, and that's when I will update it on the map. A bunch of places, which this is like a really cool feature like places do, is if you subscribe to newsletters, you get to be notified when they update their data. You also get some spam emails sometimes, but that's okay. So it would be one of those things you would update like sinkhole information with them. And then when they update their data sets yearly or however often they do, I'll import the new data layer and it gets updated on our online resource.
I think that answered my other question, because I was thinking about the floodplain having been updated in various locations in Oldham County on October 2025. So I assume you got that notification and that's now reflected in your map.
I believe so. I went through and I updated all the layers that were updated recently back in January. So if they have their most updated version, I also have in the layers information, if you click on these 3 dots, this details tab will detail the source of the layers. And so as they get updated, I can just update them within our red flag map.
Thank you. Any other questions for Alex?
All for comment. This just goes to show, I think, whether it's crashes, whether it's, interpretations of funding situations or tracking sheets or GIS work, whatever, we make this stuff for you guys, right? Whatever you guys need, what is useful to you all, please don't stop with the feedback to KIPTA and KIPTA staff about this stuff. Because really the only reason to do most of these things is so that it's useful to you all. So please don't be afraid. As you can see, we got some young new staff here that are excited to be here and that are excited to present to you guys what they've been working on, and hope there's a lot more where that comes from.
I think this looks really useful as a one-stop shop, as opposed to me going to 8 different websites to find the sinkhole, the floodplain, the wetland, and you've already got it in one spot.
I've also made it an accessible version for both tablets and phones. So if you're ever out and about and you're like, man, I really want to see this red flag inventory map, you can access it. Then you don't need the laptop or PC for that.
That's great, thank you. Oh.
Can I
Brandon,
ask
yeah.
a, not this resource, but since you mentioned some of the other resources, we're gonna be referencing the formerly the, environmental justice report that's now the transportation impact
I
areas.
believe that's what we call it now,
I think
yes.
so.
Very
Um,
carefully, we called it that, yes.
Yes, so on the website, it's still in draft form. Is there gonna be a final version of that, or should I just reference the draft?
I think that probably should not be a draft.
Right.
Form.
Update that.
Yeah,
After the meeting.
thank you for pointing that out.
Yeah. Well, that is a very useful tool for us, and we're using that on some grants that we're getting ready.
Well, good, I'm glad that it's still useful, I guess
Yes,
you could
it
say.
helped us adjust our language to the most current best practices.
Good, seriously, I'm glad you said that, because we were confident that it used to be useful,
Yes.
and now that we had to change it, hopefully it remains useful. Thank you, thanks, and we'll make sure we get it.
Okay, thanks.
All right, next on the agenda, we have the amendment to the fiscal year 2025-2028 tip. Chris.
It's just a schedule. Yes, thank you. And I don't really have a presentation, just a slide here to share. Andy at the top of the meeting pointed out our status with amendments 2 and 3. They're still pending. But they should be completed hopefully by the end of the month. We're preparing for the next amendment, which will be amendment 4 to the tip, 13 to the MTP. And so our project updates, as a reminder, you can submit them at any time using the full or expedited applications found on the transportation planning portal. There is no need to wait. I already have I think 3 projects ready for the next amendment. We're gonna assess the request, and if appropriate and feasible, we will actually make your update through an admin mod. So no worries on that, just go ahead and submit it, and if we can mod it, we'll do that, and it potentially will get done a little bit quicker. But for those that you know are gonna be amendment level, and ones that we determine need to go through an amendment, this is the timeline that we're gonna be working with. So March 20th, that's the date that you'll want to be aware of. We'd like to have everything in by then so that we can properly assess it and do our air quality conformity modeling and all of that good stuff. This timeline is designed for 1 full amendment. Also, as Andy brought up in the beginning of the meeting, separating them out, it at least thus far hasn't really given us any benefit, so we're gonna go back to just doing 1 full amendment. It's easier to administer and also a little bit less confusing with all the different names and levels of amendments. And our anticipated TPC action would be for May 28th, and then we'll have a federal review following that. I'm gonna go ahead and email the schedule out to everyone also, just so you have it in that format too.
Thank you. Any questions for Chris about the schedule? Seems laid out.
Just another note about the schedule. It's likely, not certain, it's likely that we will skip April committee meetings. Okay, so more on that next month. That we are likely gonna skip our committee meetings in April. It's a near certainty that there will be no get the board meeting that month. And so in essence, in part at least, we made sure that this schedule for this amendment didn't hit in April. It's kind of heading that way, but we said, let's do May instead. And part of that, there's not a whole lot that are in the hopper right now, so it doesn't seem like that'd be a major issue.
All right, with that, we're nearing the end of the meeting. Many less actionable items than last meeting. That was taken care of in January, but still a lot of great information. Thank you. Are there any other comments, from online or in the room?
Just if I might real quick, as I like to do sometimes, I'd like to recognize those that maybe joined in a little bit later, so they get full attendance points, right? Tracy Lovell from KYTC District 5. Tracy, thank you for being here. Keith Griffey joined us from Bullock County. Keith, thank you for being here. And then Bruce Bonney and Vince Robinson from TriMark are online as well. So thank you all for being here.
I've got some other business.
Please.
Just to make mention, the Airport Authority is just kicked off their updating their noise compatibility program. Last time we updated that was in 2003. So we just finished up what we call our noise exposure maps. Approved, I guess, approved in 2024, which kind of provides contours for the different levels of noise, 65 DNL contour, and updates that till 2029 of what that's forecasted to be. So the update really looks at three things. One is kind of our noise office, the program management of our noise office. The other is mitigation measures, which is what you can do in the sound insulation projects that we do, like Preston Highway Corridor, Louisville campus, where we're doing sound insulation. We're paying through federal dollars, paying to replace HVAC systems, windows and doors and things like that, with acoustical type of windows. And then the other is really land use as well. There's land use, which is mitigation, which is in the cockpit, where we've got different waypoints and where aircraft should be, and what we call contraflow, where aircraft land from the south and depart to the south when weather permits. And that's usually what UPS does in the middle of the night, where they're landing from the south, starting at 10 p.m. and then sort and then take off back to the south. So we're not flying over the dense population to the northwest. So we'll have some meetings. We just kicked that off last night at our community noise forum. So there's some opportunities to have some community input on that. So I can provide some information to you, Andy, if you'd like, and disseminate that.
You certainly will.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. Anyone else? Hearing no one else, I get a motion to adjourn. So moved. Second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.